Hello, today let's learn how you can maximize your income with poker cash games, and let's also learn how you can calculate exactly how much you expected to make in a month. For this, there's a simple equation where on the left side, of course, we have the monthly income, and then on the right side there are going to be three variables which we are going to have a look at separately to know how we can increase each of them and then make the calculation maybe with a few examples. So now let's have a look at the first one. The first one you need to know is the volume that you're going to play, or in other words, how many hands are you going to play in a month. For this, you need to know the table you're playing at. Are you playing at a live table, at an online regular table, or at a Zoom table? Of course, on the Zoom table you play more hands per hour than in the regular table and more than in the live game table. However, pay attention, for regular tables online, at some sites the action is faster and at some the action is slow. So it's possible that on the faster side you play something like 30% more of hands per hour on one regular table compared to the slower side. I don't play live games professionally, but I suppose that even in different casinos you play a different amount of hands per hour on average, maybe because of the dealer, ones are faster than the others, or they have a shuffling machine, but especially how much people are talking during the game. So maybe in some places people talk a lot while they're playing, or just tank more, and therefore you see a little bit less per hour than on the faster tables. I'm not sure, but you can tell me. I suppose there's a difference. Now that you've determined how many hands per hour you see at one table, you need to discuss, if you play online, how many tables are you playing at the same time? Are you able to play 3 or 4 Zoom tables? How many regular tables are you able to play at the same time? Of course, the more tables you play, the more hands per hour you see. Now the second factor is how many hours per day do you play, because it depends on your availability, how much time do you have to play, but also if you play live, maybe the games only run at night, so you can only play at night, and during the day, even if you wanted to, you cannot play. Online, if you play at a smaller site, maybe the games are dead as well at certain times of the day, and therefore you need to exactly know how many hours per day you're able to play. And then you will need to determine how many days in a month do you play. Do you take some days off? How many days do you take off? Make this calculation, add the hands you play per hour, then per day, then per month, and you will have your total volume for a month. And after you've figured this one out, let's have a look at the second thing. The second one is the win rate. Of course, the higher the win rate, the more you make. Now, how can you increase your win rate? One aspect is the softness of the table. So why do you have higher win rates at live poker tables? Generally speaking, because they're softer, more recreational players, and therefore you win more. However, online at Zoom tables, for example, you have less recreational players, and even if you have recreational players, they lose a bit less in Zoom tables because they fold faster and therefore play tighter. And whenever a recreational player plays tighter, generally speaking, they lose much less than the very loose recreational players. So take this into account. The second aspect is the rake structure. So you need to know how much rake you pay and how much rake back you receive to calculate your net rake, which is rake paid minus rake back. Of course, the higher the net rake is, the lower your win rate is going to be, and the lower the net rake is, the higher your win rate is going to be, if not considering the other factors. So take into account your rake structure. And then finally, you also need to know your performance and your skill level. So about performance, of course, the more focused you are, the better you've slept, the more you're paying attention to the game, the less you tilt, obviously, the more you have a win rate, the higher your win rate is. But also your skill level is determining. How much do you know theory? Against other regular players, other solid players, you need to be able to play close to theory, and therefore, if you do not have a high level of understanding of the theory, your win rate is going to drop. If you understand theory very well, your win rate is going to increase. Against recreational players, we need to be able to identify what they are doing wrong and how we can maximally exploit those mistakes. Therefore, the more you're able to deviate against those recreational players, also the higher your win rate will be. If you take all of this into account, you will be able to estimate your win rate per 100, because it's big blind per 100. So for this formula, you make it in win rate times 100, and you add the number here in the equation. And now to the last variable of our equation. After you've multiplied the volume times the win rate in big blinds per 100, You then have to multiply it times the stake that you play, times the amount of the big blind, obviously. So a 1 KNL, the big blind is $10, therefore times 10. A 25 NL table, the big blind is 25 cents, therefore times 0.25. The higher the stake that you play, the more money you make if the first two variables stay the same. So if the volume and the win rate stay the same, the higher the stake you play, the more your income will be. But here's the problem. Generally speaking, the higher the stake, the lower the volume and the lower the win rate. Because have you ever looked at the lobbies and seen many tables running at tables over 1 KNL? No, usually the amount of tables that are running is low, so you play less hands per hour at the higher stakes, and at the same time your win rate is going to be lower, as there are going to be less recreational players and the regular players, of course, are going to be tougher to play against. Therefore, you need to calculate the impact of your stake to the win rate and to the volume. And after you've decided the ideal stake for you, you can calculate how much money you make if you multiply the hands per month times the win rate in big blinds per 100. So if you have 5 big blinds per 100, you divide 5 by 100. And finally, you multiply this by the stake you play by the dollar amount of one big blind. So if it's 1 KNL times 10, if it's 25 NL times 0.25, and you will see exactly what you're expected to win in a month. But now let's test this formula by giving you the example of 2 fictional players to see whether it's going to give us the right income amount. So the first example, we are going to use James, who plays 20 hands per hour as a live poker player. So we first have to calculate the volume. We will type 20 for the hands of hour. Let's say he plays about 7 hours per day, so we will have to times the 20 times 7, and we will see 140. And now we're going to say that he's going to take some days off and only play, let's say, 20 days in a month, so 140 times 20, and we will see the number of hands that he plays per month. So the volume is 2,800. And now we will have to consider the win rate. Let's say he is a successful live poker player, win rates at live games are very high, so we can give him a win rate of 20 big blinds per 100, even though live players may calculate it in win rate per hour, but we are taking the same big blind per 100 logic, so times 20, and then divided by 100, as it is big blinds per 100, and we will see a result that is 560. That now only needs to be multiplied by the stake. Let's say that fictional James here really is a professional and he plays 1 KNL. One big blind at 1 KNL is $10, so 560 times 10, and we will see that the expected monthly income for James is $5,600. I hope this calculation made it somewhat clear for you. I will use one more example, which is going to be John. Let's call him John. So John plays 800 hands per hour. He obviously is an online poker player. He plays 4 Zoom tables and he plays about 5 hours per day. So we will multiply 800 times 5. And then let's say he plays 25 days in a month. He doesn't like to take many days off, maybe some Sundays. And we will now see 100,000 hands per month. So the volume is going to be 100,000 hands. But about the win rate, given he plays many hands and of course high volume, Zoom is only going to be 2 big blinds, so we have to multiply it by 2 and divide it by 100, as the win rate again is 2 big blinds per 100 hands. Therefore we now have a number of 2,000 and we have to calculate the stake. We will multiply it times, let's say, 0.25, as John is a 25 NL player. He just plays for fun mostly. He really enjoys the game, therefore the high volume, but he is not a professional player. Uses it as a side income. He has a lot of time and he makes $500 in our example. Hope this calculation helped you. Hope you also understood a little bit of how the impact of the stake is on the win rate and on the volume, so you can make your calculation decide the way that you make the most profitable decision. If you want coaching, please check out my link in the description, as well as a link for 10% off on GTO Wizard. If you like the video, please subscribe to the channel, leave a thumbs up. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.